Shit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Shirtless Plantain Show. I actually got a special episode for you today. A good friend of mine, Adam.
Good.
I know you guys remember last year I used to make fun of Ghanaians all the time. It was banter. You guys qualified for Nations Cup, so I'll let you guys go. And I do have my Ghanaian boy with me.
It's all love. It's all love. It's all love.
So we kind of have a special topic for you today. International break. We felt like it's like a perfect time to speak about it. We just let's just get right into it. So you basically want to speak about the young players who are kind of playing for their, different countries versus their home countries, and just kind of like the whole politics behind all of that, and make fun of it and like different stuff. But yeah, make sure it's a good episode for you guys.
Yeah.
So I guess the biggest elephant in the room we're gonna start off with, obviously, you got my Ghanaian homie, like I said, Callum Hudson-Odoi. You want to take it from me and kind of speak about Callum?
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adam. By the way, what we wanted to talk about basically is there are, where a lot of us are from immigrant homes where we're second generation children of families that, immigrated from home countries or third world countries to try to, better their situation. Mm-hmm. So in result, there are a lot of players and, if we look at the France team, for example, a lot of them are second generation, African kids that have immigrated to France and, represent the France national team. But if you look at a lot of the home nations they could play for, they could do a lot more for those home nations if, if they were enticed to play for them. Yeah. So in the life of a footballer, and we're talking about Callum Hudson-Odoi here. He's the hot topic, the 18-year-old. If you're not sure, he's 18 years old, plays for Chelsea. Is yet to start in a Premier League game in this campaign.
But he has 2 England caps.
But he has 2 England caps. And that's the luck of the draw sometimes. And congratulations to him, first and foremost. We don't want to take anything away from that. That is a big achievement for himself and for his family and what that means to him. But what we want to take a look at is he's a perfect example of what it means to be somebody from a family that's from a diaspora nation. So I don't know if you guys aren't aware, Callum Hudson-Odoi is from a family of Ghanaians. His parents are both Ghanaian nationals, now immigrated to the United Kingdom. So he qualifies to play for both the United Kingdom and England, but England and Ghana. I'm sorry, but he's now played a competitive match for England. So he would no longer be eligible to play for Ghana. But what we wanted to talk on is we are obviously my friend Scams Tozen here is a Nigerian representative, and myself being Ghanaian, we're both from households of immigrants, and we're born in different nations, so we understand that struggle. Just maybe not on the footballer term as far as having to make that decision, but we understand what it is to balance 2 cultures. And what we want to talk about is essentially with the state of African football and where it is at the moment. A lot of these diaspora kids could be futures, could have the potential to be future to lead this new generation of CAF going forward. That's the organization. So Callum Hudson-Odoi is a perfect example of what could have been. And I'm sure there's going to be countless others that are going to come along and we can talk about. But to see an 18-year-old that's yet to play a Premier League game, and that's not because that's not any shade to his skill or his talent level or anything. That's the manager's choice. The manager sees him week in, week out, and maybe for the system that they play at Chelsea, he doesn't see him as a starter. Maybe he sees him as an impact player. But to see an 18-year-old get his first England call-up and get blooded in at 18, I feel happy for him, but I also feel it's a missed opportunity for both the player and for the other nation, which is being Ghana in this example. There are several reasons, but there are a lot of players like this. But let Scams jump in and see what his opinion is. Well.
I mean, that was naturally going to happen. I mean, there's always these kids who like their level is like they're just going to get caught up. I mean, Jadon Sancho. I mean, you've seen what Jadon done. Jadon could play for Trinidad if he wanted to, but he can't because now he has his England call-ups. I mean, take a look at Alex Iwobi, for example. I know a lot of people talk shit about Alex. Alex is a good player. Whether you like it or not, Alex is a good player. You don't play week in and week out for Arsenal and being a terrible player.
Exactly.
But Alex now plays for Nigeria. He's been to the World Cup with Nigeria. And also take a look at Olaino, who also grew up with Tammy Abraham. Exactly. Tammy and Lookman, I know I tweet about that all the time, but they need to like fix their lives because Tammy and Lookman, there's like it's dead for you. I mean, like Rashford's still there, Kane's still there, Lingard's still there, and like it's like how are you gonna fit into that squad? But you take a look at Nigeria now, like Nigeria is now building something really special over there. I mean, we beat Egypt today because we're nice, but that's besides the point. It's like they're building something special over there. It's like now you can like mix. The kids from back home, you can mix the kids from the diaspora and kind of have a stronger team. But also, I mean, it's also a cultural thing. I mean, a lot of these kids sometimes don't really have that really close connect to their culture.
Exactly.
There's some kids who aren't really into their culture. They just see themselves as British or they see themselves as American and they kind of detach themselves.
That's true.
But then there's also the politics. I have examples that I'm not going to tell you, but just to say that there's a lot of under the table stuff that happens with these African countries, which sucks. But that is the game. It's either you're going to play or you're going to get played. So there is that balance of trying to like figure out, are you going to pay these uncles or are you not going to pay these uncles? So it's a really, really dicey situation. I mean, I understand what some of these players play. I mean, Pogba's brothers, for example, they all play for the Guinean national team, but Pogba plays for France. Yeah, because again, these countries know who the good players are. Sometimes they slip through their net. I mean, like Aubameyang plays for what country?
Gabon.
Plays for Gabon, yeah. They suck.
Sadio Mane.
Yeah, Sadio Mane plays for Senegal. He could have played for France. Yeah. I mean, also take a look at Umtiti. Umtiti was born in Cameroon. He could have played for, Cameroon, but instead he played for France. So it's like there's this really, really like fine line of like how do you balance, these plays, especially these African countries. I mean, it's tough. I mean, what's the appeal for you as an African country to bring these players over? Mm-hmm. And then, there's the corruption and all of that. So
yeah, the years of corruption and politics. And we ain't gonna go all down that line because we'll be here forever and ever. Mm-hmm. But I think in terms of Nigeria, that's a really good example. I mean, still Ghana all day, but that's a good example to look at. So the NFF they took a look at they hadn't qualified for a couple of tournaments, both the Nations Cup and the World Cup for a while, and I think that don't get me wrong, the NFF is not a perfect organization. There's still tons of things. There's a lot of work going on into that. Mm-hmm. But they've taken a look at it. They've taken a look at it and seen, okay, look, we as a nation, there's 160 million plus Nigerians in Nigeria, which is cool. Yeah. But they look at the outside. There's probably 80 to 90 million diaspora of Nigerians. So they looked at that. And then they look at that population and they look at, they look at in terms of the spread where the kids are that are playing football and who are eligible to play for both, the respective, nation that they were born in, whether that's, England or Germany or the US or whatever the case may be, and then who also eligible to play for Nigeria. And what they look at, and what the NFF, it looks like they have done is kind of, sold the kids, a plan, sat down with the parents and the kids and kind of sold them a plan that, look, this is the goal. This is what we are trying to do here at the NFF. I know you've seen things in the past. We've had a lot of historic players come through. We've had a lot of historic moments, being the Olympics or the World Cups that we played in the past, the African nation triumphs that we've had. And we're trying to restore that glory. And again, I'm not sitting in on these meetings. I'm just saying this looks kind of like the way they've gone about it. Mm-hmm. But they've done that, and comprehensively now they've been able to sway players like Alex Iwobi, for one, scored in the World Cup qualifying run, scored the goal that takes Nigeria to the World Cup. And he was born in Nigeria, but he was eligible to play for England. And to be fair to Alex Iwobi, he probably could get in the England team,
but he won't play.
Yeah, he probably won't play. One. Yeah. Two, the time that he was deciding, England didn't have this manager that was about the young players. Yeah. So, it kind of lucked up for Nigeria in that sense. But,
both of our center backs.
Like all Africans say, God's time is the best time. So,
mean, look at both of our center backs. Trostekong could have played for Netherlands. You could have had, I don't know whose phone that is, but excuse me, guys. But yeah, you could have had any sort of players play for Nigeria. I mean, even take a look at Leon Balogun. He could have played for Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, Nigeria now is finding this balance, and even Netherlands are doing it really well. I mean, Zaha, now they have Zaha, they have Pepe, and they have Cornet. Those guys could, Zaha could have played for England, Cornet could have played for France, and Pepe could have played for France. But now you have this front three of players who are, from the diaspora, grew up in the diaspora. So it's like, the point of what we're trying to make is that there's, the players sometimes have to take a look at the bigger picture. It's like, we understand the appeal of playing for England, but in the grand scheme of things, is England really that different from many of the African countries? Because England hasn't won anything since 1966. Let's keep it a buck. England hasn't done that much on the global stage. So the point of what we're trying to make is that a lot of these players need to sometimes take a look at their situations and, take a look at the grand scheme of things and the bigger things of like understanding that, look, you can build something, you can build a legacy not only for yourself, but your family and your country. So, unless you're French, because France is going to run the table. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean,
that's a given. That's
France is going to run the table. So basically, my point is, like, be smart about your choices. You could be like Timothy Fosu-Mensah, who now is struggling to get to the Dutch squad.
He has 3 caps for the Dutch squad. He's I think 20. I've written down somewhere, but I think he's 22.
Yeah, it's like 22.
3 caps for the Dutch squad. Can't get into Manchester United. Can't get into Crystal Palace squad. When he's eligible to play for Ghana.
Fulham, that's even worse. He can't even get to the Fulham squad, who's the worst team in the league. So he can't even get to the Fulham squad. So point is, what we're trying to make today is that, like, look, a lot of young kids, think about your decision in a bigger term, like bigger pictures. I mean, I love Wan-Bissaka. I think Wan-Bissaka should be playing for England. We could also play for Congo, but we're trying to figure out, you have Trippier, you have Walker ahead of you. It's like, are you really going to play ahead of those guys? You should be, but at the end of the day, we want the best for all these kids. We really don't. I mean, I make a lot of jokes. Y'all know that that's my thing. But I really, at the end of the day, I just want all these kids to do better for themselves. And I really want to see an African team really win the World Cup. I mean, naturally, I want Nigeria to win, but it'd be nice to see an African team win something.
It would be nice to see, I think the last time we really saw, and then to talk about it, Africa, we have, I would say we have 4 major countries that, on the football, 4 or 5, I would say, that historically have always been, up there. We have Egypt, we have Ghana, we have Nigeria, Cameroon, and the Ivory Coast, or Cote d'Ivoire, as other people know it as. So, we have, some nations that have historically been good in football within the continent itself, and then when it comes to the World Cup. However, those are past glories. We're in a new era of football. We're in a new era of football, and we're in a new time. And like Scams was touching on here is, a lot of it is a lot deeper, than just playing. Sometimes, football is also, they already live in a bubble.
Yeah.
They already live in their own bubble, and so a lot of times, I'm not in the football's home. I don't know how they were raised, but a lot of times, being able to choose your home nation, the nation that your parents were birthed in, and your values came from, a lot of time that could be, your way of getting in touch with your culture.
Yeah.
Those trips back home to play with the national team, whether it's just, the inauguration songs that they have when you first join the first team, whether it's, the little, rituals they go through when they have to meet the presidents of the said presidents of the said nation, and so on and so forth. Just these little things.
Even the bus rides.
The bus rides where they can, African nations were big on church and so on and so forth. Those things where we get to learn the songs that that the players sing. So a lot of times, a lot of these kids, I get it. There's all these brands out here, Nike and Adidas and Puma and Under Armour and all these things that they have a stake in all these things and saying, players agents and all this. We get it. We completely get it. Get yours. You got to get the bag. We here for it too. I completely understand it. I'm not here to tell you how to earn your money. That's not what I'm here for. But what I am saying is there are, I can list off a bunch of, at least, for Ghana, I can list off a bunch of players right now.
Welbeck.
Welbeck is a prime example. Welbeck is a prime example of somebody that could have, way back, I think that would have been maybe, 04, 05, probably when he was first coming onto the scene in the Manchester United team. That they could have tried to convince, from England. I mean, I know there's other players. There's the Balotellis of this world and so on and so forth that also have allegiances to Ghana, but for whatever the reason may be, deeper issues, and we can talk about here today. They didn't choose it, but Welbeck is a pure example of somebody that maybe, I'm not saying Welbeck has supreme talent. Maybe he's not world class. He bundles in goals, and we have appreciated them here at Arsenal and there, Man United as well. Mm-hmm. But he's somebody that could have led the line for Ghana, and could have, that could have been something that helped him, even in his brand, if that was something that he was pursuing, because footballers, they have to pursue other things as well. If you're not winning, you need to also make as much as you can for your family to sustain to
always
life
secure
outside.
The bag.
You're always, we're here for we're brothers at the end of the day. We're here for the bag. I'm not mad at no bag talk. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But so that is an example of that. And I think one thing about the again, I want to touch on with the NFF. I'm here with my brother Scams, so we got to talk about the NFF too. Show them some love. Yeah. But one thing about that is, when you recruit somebody like Alex Iwobi that plays week in, week out at Arsenal, that's come through the academy, that's born in that's been brought up in this British culture, this British urban culture, it means a lot, and it also creates an environment within the team, and it creates an environment. Okay, there's a lot of younger, we can look at the Chelsea academies, the Arsenal academies, the Man United academies, the City academies. There's a lot of young, and those are just the top teams. There's academies all throughout. There's a lot of young guys coming through, and they're trying to get some sort of first team action. That's why on the flip side of the Callum Hudson-Odoi argument that the media and everybody's talking about, the good thing is he's getting first team minutes with the national team. Yeah. These young players, there's only the trajectory is only goes so high. So at the end, the goal is to play in a first team somewhere, whether it's the first team at Chelsea or the first team at Exeter City. You want to play in a first team. That's the goal. You want to live a life of a footballer if that's the line of work you're in. Yeah. So that is the flip side of it. But if you look at someone like Alex Iwobi or someone like Ola Aina or who else can we talk about? Liam Balogun. Mm-hmm. These players that they are class players. These are players that are class players. But they've said, look, you know what? We're young. We're not 29 and 30 and 32 at the end of our careers choosing to play for Nigeria because we got rejected. These are young guys with a lot of time and ahead of them. They might be just at their first stop in club career. Like they could move on to bigger and better things, or they could stay at mid-tier, whatever the case may be, whatever their fortune is. But what they've decided as young men, we're in a different era now. We're in a social media era. All the players talk. They're all friends. Yep. Don't get it twisted. They don't take these rivalries serious like we do on Twitter every day.
For example, I think Burna Boy had a concert last year, and all you saw was Tam Abraham there. Yeah. Fikayo Tomori was there. Alex Iwobi was there. Kenneth Amoro flew in from Spain. So we have all these guys who are like really close friends. And we talk the shit on Twitter all the time about I hate your team, blah, blah, blah. But these guys don't give a damn. They're all making money. Yeah, so
they don't care.
Point of this is just like, we want the best for everybody. Yeah. But selfishly, we want you to come home.
We want y'all to come home. Yeah. We want y'all to embrace the culture. Yeah. We want y'all to create a new legacy for these historic football nations. Yeah. Because we all know last year, I think 2018, there was a big, if you're big into football and you're big into African football, there was a big uproar when the documentary came out about the corruption within the Ghana FA, and the president, Nana Akufo-Addo, had to step in and dissolve the GFA. And for something like that to happen is a shame. First and foremost, it's a shame for Ghana. It's a shame for any African country, any nation. It's a shame for any FA, period. Yeah. That is embarrassing. It is something that should not be happening. But, however, there is some good that can come from it. Yeah. And so it's up to Ghana now. It's up to the FA. It's up to the president to now want to step in and say, hey, look, the next person that we put in charge here, we want you to sit down with us. We want you to tell us your 15, your 10, your 5, your 25-year plan for what it is to restore this historic nation and this FA. And we're and I don't know if we're talking about Ghana, we're in the year 2019. This is, even for the nation itself, this is the year of return. There's just a lot of things going on with tourism to come back to Ghana. And, this is a perfect opportunity for a lot of, for the GFA itself, to try to entice these young players. There's Eddie and Ketty at Arsenal that sits on the bench week in, week out. He's 19 years old, but he's ready for first team action. Yeah. And we could talk about, we could talk about the players needing loans and all this stuff.
We could talk about this for hours. Yeah,
we could talk about it for hours, but these are players that, if there's a structure, a proper structure in place for the GFA, Ghana, there's 28 million of us within the country. There's probably another, I'd say 10 to 15 or maybe 20 million of us outside in the diaspora. So how many of them are footballers? And there are opportunities, and not even just footballers. I don't know if y'all are hip. I don't know if the audience is hip at all, but the biggest director, fashion director right now is Virgil Abloh. Happens to be a Ghanaian of Ghanaian descent as well. Yeah. Happens to be a charger at Nike. So, hey, if anybody at Nike or Virgil is watching and, you want to come and do a little kit design, get a little campaign, that's another time, another place. But, but, these are the points I'm trying to make is that there's a lot of time. And this is a perfect opportunity. Yeah. Now, these kids that are in touch with, they're all in touch. They all speak. Yeah. The families all know each other. The families all speak. This is the perfect opportunity for the kids to be like, we want to, because there's only like, if we look at the England team, for example, if we look at the England team, we can even talk about the German team. If we look at the England team right now, and they play a 4-3-3. It's 4-3-3 is becoming pretty much the norm in the international scene. Yeah. Maybe not so much in the club scene, but national scene is becoming the norm. Yeah. It's winning formula for France, so a lot of teams are going with that. But they have Rashford, Kane, Sterling, now Jadon Sancho, now Callum Hudson-Odoi. They still have Jesse Lingard, James Maddison. That's almost 8-9 players for three front rows. And none of them are older than 25. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is that's why I always talk about, the Lookmans and the Tammy Abrahams is Tammy Abraham could have gone to the World Cup last year and become a bigger player.
Could have been playing for Nigeria.
Yeah. So, this is a different era. Like we've been saying, even look at the Nigeria jerseys and the way that has sparked social media, things like that. There's a special time to play for these African countries. I feel like this is something special. Is gonna, that is a cultural awareness too. It's a cultural thing. You see a lot of us from the diaspora going back home and doing stuff. So there's a good synergy. I don't want to take away from the players back home because there are talented players.
There's a lot of talent.
There's a lot of talent back home. So I'm not trying to take that away. So we just kind of have to figure out this. How do we take this talent from diaspora and how do we take this talent from home and mesh it to something? Because we need to see African teams, doing well.
We need to see them be on the forefront. Yeah. We saw that. The Ivory Coast tried that. In the late, in the early 2000s, and with the Drogbas of the world, all those guys, those type of players. They tried to bring that. Unfortunately, it didn't manifest in the way that we all wanted to. We were all Ivorian fans when they was doing their thing. Don't get it twisted. We might have been talking mad shit behind the scenes, but when it came on game day and Ivory Coast was playing for that 90 minutes, we all Ivorian. Even if we don't speak a lick of French, we all Ivorian in that moment. So we all want to see our home nations do good. These are the opportunities. If you look at and the reason being is, we can even touch on. There are a lot of good players in the home nations. There are a lot of good players in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Cameroon, in Egypt, in Senegal,
even the East African countries, South African countries,
Kenya, South Africa. There's a lot of good players in these nations. But one thing that's important too is that one thing that's important with a lot of these diaspora players is they have the mic that the players back home don't.
Yeah. You have kids playing the Champions League weekly, Europa League, playing the top 5 leagues. So what we kind of want to wrap a little bit here. What we want to kind of say, the point is this: is we want the best for all of our African countries, and we want that balance of players from diaspora and players from back home. And since AFCON is this year, you guys should definitely watch it. We'll have more. We have a lot more content towards that in the future. But 24 teams. So that's basically almost half the continent. If your country didn't qualify, you suck.
You suck. But Ghana is there.
Yeah, Nigeria is there, and we qualified last year because we're nice.
We're coming back strong. Don't worry.
So, ladies and gentlemen, from myself, Tosin Scams, I'm out. It's my friend Adam once again.
Smooth Ignorance
on Twitter. So we'll be back with you guys with more content. Thanks again for checking everything out, and we'll continue to bring you guys more content.
Arsenal qualify for the top 4.
Peace.